any libertarian who is an adult acknowledges that before you can have a society with liberty, you have to deal with the people who are the reason we can't have nice things.
Yes. Washington Post columnist Karen Attiah claims she was fired after her social media posts following the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Oh, womp womp. Is it the consequences of my own actions? She says that it was for her free speech. The Post called it gross misconduct. Joining us now to discuss this and more, science fiction author Devon Eriksen. He's written brilliantly about the intersection of culture, free speech, and the dangerous paths societies can take when dissenting voices are silenced. Today, we need his perspective on a story that says a lot about where we are as a country. Good morning, Devon, and welcome back to the Wake Up America show. Glad to have you here today.
Well, good morning, Austin. Always a pleasure to be here.
Devon, cancel culture, consequence culture, your take on the leftists that are losing their jobs and their livelihoods. Should we have unity with these people? Should we try and bring people together in kumbaya? Or is it time for enemies at the gates, Genghis Khan, let's surround them and we'll decide what to do with them after we've captured them?
It's somewhere in between. But we can't have unity. We can't have a dialogue because they shot the unity guy. They shot the dialogue guy. Charlie Kirk. And I didn't know him, so I won't eulogize him too far. I'll leave that for his friends. But he was, to all appearances, the guy who would talk to anybody in a calm, polite, respectful manner. And he got a lot of traction that way. And a lot of lies were told about him. And those lies resulted in somebody slightly unhinged deciding that he should die. So we can't go back to the status quo. That kind of action, not just on the part of one deranged assassin, but on the part of all the people who radicalized him, that has to have consequences. That has to change how we deal with those people. And one of the ways that this has changed how we deal with those people is we've started to sort of publicize their actions. Hey, do you know that this person is posted this long unhinged rant on, TikTok or whatever, celebrating the death of a public figure who was shot in the neck in front of his 5-year-old daughter? And, naturally, employers are saying, hey, wait a minute, I'm not entirely comfortable with this. I have people working for me in various capacities as, trying to launch my audiobook productions and so forth. And if I found out that one of them had this sort of worldview, that would have consequences. And this is not precisely the same as what we called cancel culture 6 years ago, 4 years ago, what have you. That back then it was, this police officer privately made a $25 donation to Kyle Rittenhouse's defense fund, a guy who was actually innocent and just defending himself. And let's root this out and let's call his employer. And his employer is going to fire him because he's scared of public backlash. What we have now is different. What we have now is, this person working for me is a ghoul. I am genuinely disturbed by this. Sometimes if somebody does something, it's not just what they did. It's what we found out about them because they did it. It's what we found out about what kind of person they are. And if someone is able to dehumanize, not only a moderate public figure, but by all accounts, a gentleman, so far that they're willing to countenance and celebrate his murder, what are they going to do in the context of your business? So I think these employers are genuinely disturbed
I
by
think
what they're seeing.
certainly, and I agree with them. The Attorney General of the United States has spoken out about this, talking about hate speech, and I tried to make the distinction between what I saw as conduct supporting violent terrorist actions or calling for more murders versus just saying that you didn't like the guy or refusing service. So, for example, there were employees at Office Depot who got fired because they refused to print posters for a vigil for
So
Charlie
they were
Kirk,
fired for refusing to do their job.
for refusing to do their
Yeah,
job.
you get paid to do
Right.
your job. You
Right.
refuse to do your job, hasta la bye bye.
It completely makes sense, and that's the marketplace of ideas, because the backlash and the video showed what was going on, and that should be done in the marketplace of ideas. It's just like the gay wedding cake. If you don't want, if someone won't bake you a gay wedding cake because they're Christian, go to the one next door. We shouldn't be forced to bake the gay wedding cake.
Yeah.
But what's the role of government in this? Because when we talk about no unity, there's talk about going after Antifa, going after them like Richard Nixon did his political enemies. Yesterday, we had a gentleman on this show who says that we need to dismantle Antifa the same way that the government dismantled the KKK. What is the proper necessary role for law enforcement in this scenario?
Well, the way I've heard about this is that they're thinking of pursuing it like a RICO case, seeing Antifa as a criminal organization. And, if there is any sort of criminal conspiracy to commit murder, that in itself is a crime. So that's black letter law. Going after Antifa is not controversial. That's the basic criminal justice process. You see that there might have been a crime, you investigate it, you find out who is guilty of it, you prosecute it. This is not some big political sea change. This is just what we do with criminal organizations. This is how we handle criminal organizations in our society. Personally, I think Antifa is a criminal organization, but it's not very organized. There's no central leadership. It's more like a standalone complex. So
They're talking about
you
RICO.
probably can.
Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that specifically, because they're talking about RICO charges potentially for the George Soros institutions that tend to fund, that they are alleging are funding many of these protests, where bricks will suddenly appear and violence will occur, and potentially doing RICO charges after some of these institutions and nonprofits. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, again, that is a matter of gathering the evidence and establishing the basic pillars of a RICO case, which is a conspiracy, a pattern of crime, knowledge, etc. I would have to go to the exact law article to be more specific than that. But I think an investigation is warranted. And I think that trying to decide right here on a talk show what the outcome of that investigation should be is putting the cart before the horse. We don't have the ability to do the investigation right here. But in terms of this kind of what's called cancel culture, I think we need to focus on two things. First of all, the word cancel culture lumps up a lot of acts. But like we've just been talking about, we have people getting fired from their jobs by private employers for a great variety of causes. And we have the government deciding potentially to investigate certain things as crimes. And these get lumped together under cancel culture. But it's actually a great variety of different acts that morally they're different. But there's something that I'd like to focus on. in terms of the left is saying, oh, this is cancel culture. You said you didn't like cancel culture. It's true. You can describe this as cancel culture, and the right had some moral arguments against cancel culture. And, the response is, first of all, these are very different acts. Absolutely, they are very different acts. But in a larger political arena, I think we have to remember that there is no moral equivalence between aggression and retaliation.
Agreed.
It absolutely matters who did it first.
Thank you. Yes, this is what I've been trying to explain to some of my liberty friends who are out there saying, no, we need to come together and kumbaya. This needs to be a moment of unity with these people. And I'm just like, where is the in the non-aggression principle? Does it mean that there's never any retaliation? Does that mean, as a matter of fact, Devon, you might appreciate this. Sorry to interrupt just a second. But yesterday I had someone on who was saying, oh, in West Side Story, remember the Jets and the Sharks, Tony was trying to get them together. And he was saying, let's not have guns or blades. Let's have just a good old fashioned fist fight. And I didn't even think about it, but my brother, Justin, a big musical theater guy, called me up and he goes, does anybody remember what happened to Tony at the end of West Side Story? Even after what he did, he got shot. It didn't help. He's murdered.
Yeah. Well, this is stupid libertarianism.
Thank you.
This is the naive version of libertarianism, and all they do is hurt the libertarian cause.
Agreed.
Because
people who are taking away our liberties and our life and our property.
Yeah. It's not, the government is not the only threat to liberty. Anarchy and chaos is also a threat to liberty. Violence in our streets is also a threat to liberty. Political assassination on the part of fringe groups of nutcases is a threat to liberty. What happened to Charlie's freedom to speak? Blam. That's not liberty. You have to deal with those people before you can have liberty, and you have to deal with them in an effective manner. So if somebody is hitting you with a stick, maybe you say, I don't like being hit with sticks. People shouldn't hit each other with sticks. But if he keeps doing it, then you snatch the stick and you hit him back with it. And then if he says, well, you said hitting people with sticks is wrong, you hypocrite. Well, you started it, you fucking hypocrite. We're ending it. The whole goal of practicing cancel culture against the left now is to make it hurt so badly that they genuinely say, okay, we surrender, never cancel culture again. No more sticks. And that's what we have to do in order to prevent more people from dying. We have to fight back, or they're going to keep doing this.
Completely agree. This is why we bring on the author of Theft of Fire, science fiction author Devon Eriksen, as often as we can on the Wake Up America show. Camellia over in the chat was saying, I'm a science fiction fan. I need to get some of his books. You darn right you do. And you could get them at Amazon. They're also, have you released the audio version of the book, or is that still pending?
That is imminent. We are going through the final notes, and that will be in a matter of weeks, I think.
There we go. So we'll definitely keep an eye out for that. But we can get a copy of Theft of Fire right now on Amazon.com. He's the only author that I bring on here to promote his books instead of my own. So while you're on Amazon, put a copy of Theft of Fire in there and grab a copy of Grover, the Nope President, for your kids to teach them about the president who said no. We're talking this morning, Devon Eriksen, about the cancel culture, consequence culture, violence, aggression, and hate speech and free speech. So in regards to the question of hate speech, the Attorney General came out yesterday, Pam Bondi, saying that, we will go after you for hate speech. And she's saying that she said specifically that they would use the government to go after Office Depot after that situation occurred. Do you think that she's off the mark here in these statements? A lot of people are pillorying her for her comments about hate speech. Did you happen to hear them or not?
I did not.
Would you mind? Can I play them for you very briefly?
Yes, please.
Let me. It's a 30-second clip. Just let me play it for you real quick, and then we'll come up and you can listen. Hold on one sec.
There's free speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
Even across the aisle there, Devon. So they'll prosecute hate speech against our own people. So your thoughts?
Well, this sounds like woofing to me. I mean, they're, you know, the Trump administration has to say certain things, and ultimately these, when they step over the line constitutionally, they usually fail in court. Now, I didn't hear anything about going after Office Depot there.
No, but she does say that in another clip.
Okay.
And I do have that, I believe. Here's what she says in the other clip. Hold on just one sec.
Okay.
That's horrific. It's free speech, but you shouldn't be employed anywhere if you're going to say that. And employers, you have an obligation to get rid of people. You need to look at people who are saying horrible things, and they shouldn't be working with you. Businesses cannot discriminate. If you want to go in and print posters with Charlie's pictures on them for a vigil, you have to let them do that. We can prosecute you for that. I have Harmeet Dillon right now in our civil rights unit looking at that immediately, that Office Depot had done that. We're looking at that. But Sean,
there you go. Devon, your response.
Okay. That is what they're thinking of here is under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, where businesses are not allowed to choose their customers based on certain criteria. And, I will go on record and have gone on record saying that I think the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is unconstitutional and a terrible idea. But, as so long as it is law, they can look at this and they can possibly build a case. Now, as far as going after Office Depot is concerned, that kind of sounds a bit silly, given that, okay, these people were fired immediately. If you're running a small business, you can barely control how your employees interact with your customers. If you're running a national business, it's pretty much hopeless. You're always going to get a weirdo or two. And the best you can do is fire them the instant you detect them. Now, when she says, the businesses have an obligation to fire people who speak this way, I don't think constitutionally you can argue for a legal obligation. But I think if she's saying they have a moral obligation, maybe you could argue that. It's certainly common sense. It's certainly common sense when you have a national chain and they're pissing off one side of the culture, and some of your employees are pissing off one side of the culture war. You want to get rid of them because you're not in the politics business. You are in the printing posters business. So I don't think we need to go as far as trying to create some sort of legal obligation. I think that the employers are doing just fine on their own when we point out that the employees are ghouls. They're already doing the right thing. I don't think we need to twist their arms unless that stops happening.
Whenever we have Devon Eriksen on this show, the view count goes whoosh through the roof. And today's no different. We're trending at number 2 right now over on X, almost beating the number 1 show, the American Sunrise Show over there. Congratulations to them for all of their great success. And congratulations to us, because my scheme to create the greatest morning show in all of the right wing is succeeding because of people like Devon Eriksen. Devon, is there anything about this story in particular, any angle that you think we've missed, or an important point that you'd like to make before we let you go, sir? And then, of course, please plug your incredible body of work.
Well, I think that we need to remember not just to say, okay, what we're doing with getting people fired is different. It's also to remember that there is no moral equivalence between aggression and retaliation. And this is something that we have to remember beyond cancel culture. Because we on the right, we in this sort of reaction movement to the radical leftists do not have the power to turn down the temperature. The only way we could turn down the temperature is to surrender and allow Western civilization to be destroyed. So any rhetoric to turn down the temperature needs to be addressed to the left because they're the ones turning it up in the first place. What we have to do is remember that we are retaliating to stop the nonsense. So even if we do exactly what they did, it is not the same because we never wanted this. We didn't throw hands to begin with. That is important.
We didn't start the fire, but we didn't steal it either. But if you want to read about thieves of fire,
yes, this is the body of work. This is Theft of Fire. First novel, second one's coming out hopefully a little bit later this year. And so far it's done really well. We're producing an audiobook. We raised $42,000 to do that. So we've had a lot of traction.
It's just really exciting to see, Devon. I love your insight. I have your posts set to notifications so that whenever you tweet, I get the notification on my phone. I highly recommend that other people do that. Follow the author of Theft of Fire, Devon Eriksen, because he has been so kind to us and so generous with his time. They always come on the show whenever they can, and I appreciate it. Devon, you have a wonderful day and take care.
You
We'll
too.
talk to you soon.